And that leads us to this pivot to power outages. So first of all, I'm not, whataboutism has a complicated history, and actually whataboutism was initially used by people to shut down, has always been used by people to shut down the critique of U.S. empire, right? And at the same time, I think sometimes it's fair to complexify a conversation. That being said, to see the likes of Marco Rubio, who is a dangerous empty suit, he manages to pull that fusion off, tweeting, first of all, showing the ball by tweeting out a photo of a sodomized and murdered Muammar Gaddafi, the transparent face of the sociopathic U.S. empire that he is the point man for in Latin America. And then to say, oh, well, there are these power outages in Venezuela. They're terrible. What word did you have to say for 11 months when Puerto Rico, which is an exploited U.S. colony, and I mean that in a literal sense, a colony, was without power for 11 months? And now people in Puerto Rico are having their food stamps cut so there can be a massive austerity wave to pay off vulture funds. No word about that, but there's some problems in Venezuela. Now, again, in the long term, is there problems in Venezuela's infrastructure, which is the result of all the things we already know? U.S. sanctions, U.S. interference, and governmental mismanagement. Yes, we already know that. Is the timing of these blackouts a bit suspicious? Yup. Some people with information from people like Snowden and who are sort of tuned to that world, they say it is possible that the United States can do something like this. Obviously, I would put nothing past the intelligence services, the CIA, or...
I mean, after Stuxnet, I mean...
Yeah, I mean, right, precisely. I mean, we created a global computer virus because of something that was supposed to target Iran specifically. Or Israel did. Was that us or Israel? Or a partnership?
I think it was a partnership.
It was a partnership.
Yeah, I think it was Israel maybe taking point.
So, yes, we could be doing this. It also could be an organic problem in Venezuela, which is why the answer is, and if you actually cared about the well-being of Venezuela in a diplomatic process, you would immediately remove all sanctions on everything to do with food and services to the population. And A, you could help get their infrastructure going again, or B, if the problems remained exactly the same without constant U.S. economic terrorism, then you could actually definitively say this is all Maduro's fault, which is totally impossible to say now. But here is Elliot Abrams, who should be only known for lying to Congress about Iran-Contra and spinning war crimes, mass murder, and genocide from Latin America and human rights abuses from Latin America to the Middle East. Here he is. These exchanges are interesting. First, it's on the power grid. And secondly, it's just the ongoing U.S. imperial approach to who gets recognized as the legitimate power in Venezuela.
Yeah, we come in after he asks the power grid question.
Cause of the blackout. And second, could you explain to us the article under which Mr. Guaido declared himself president? It is said that it has expired last month. Could you explain that to us?
Yes.
What is it?
On the blackout, we're not there. I believe there is a consensus now that by far the most likely explanation is that these extremely high voltage lines, which tend to bow as the months go and years go by. That is, they are not straight. They tend to sag is a good word, into trees and bushes. And that creates the possibility of a fire. That is what I would say more experts have given as the explanation. So how do you avoid that? It's simple. You cut and prune and keep trees and bushes from approaching the lines. And they haven't done that. There's really been no maintenance, not just for years, but for decades.
So stop terrorizing their economy.
Well, there's that, and this may be too conspiratorial. This is just me spitballing here, but the way that he says over months and years, and they haven't done this over decades, makes it seem like intelligence agencies have noticed that, and they're like, "Oh, this would be a really good thing to blame when we need to."
Right. No, I don't think. Yeah, I think
it's a good out.
It's a good out.
really been no maintenance, not just for years, but for decades on those. They have 3 high voltage lines coming essentially from the Guri Dam. That's our best explanation. It is not formed, obviously, by examination, but rather by reports that we've seen from a fair number of experts. As to the Venezuelan constitution, the National Assembly has passed a resolution that states that that 30-day period of interim presidency will not start ending or counting until the day Nicolas Maduro leaves power. So the 30 days doesn't start now. It starts after Maduro. And that's a resolution of the National Assembly.
When did they did that after he?
They did that, this is roughly a month ago. We could try to find the date for you.
When he was took the mantle of
Yes,
interim
when
president, that wasn't there.
That's correct.
Can you
And
do
so
that
people-
ex post facto like
When
that?
people ask the question,
That seems
how
to be
do-
like saying, you know, I was elected for 4 years to be president, and then 2 years in, you changed the rules so that your term didn't start, hasn't even started yet.
Exactly.
It's because I'm smart.
you don't get a vote because you're not in the National Assembly. But we,
You're not the National Assembly either.
Does the U.S. view that as constitutional under their system?
yes, I mean, we're taking the National Assembly is the only legitimate democratic institution left in Venezuela. And their interpretation of the Constitution, as you know, is that as of the date of this alleged term for Maduro, the presidency is vacant. But they have also said that that 30-day period starts when Maduro goes.
So Guaido is the interim president of an interim that doesn't exist yet.
The 30-day end to his interim presidency starts counting because he's not in power. That's the problem. Maduro is still there. So they have decided that they will count that from when he actually is in power and Maduro is gone. I think it's logical.
So then he isn't interim president.
He is interim president, but he's not
No power.
able to exercise the powers of the office because Maduro still is there.
So their interpretation is that until and unless he actually has the power to run the country, he's not actually.
No,
The interim
their
president?
their interpretation is that the Constitution requires a 30-day interim period, but those 30 days should not be counted while Maduro is still there exercising the powers of his former office.
So this is the actual bureaucratic spin of U.S. coups. There is a technical rule, which we've made up on the fly, because we've made up on the fly that we recognize one source of power overriding all other institutions and legitimacies in Venezuela. And we then make up an imaginary rule to justify the other imaginary source of power that we've recognized.
It's almost like if you've ever played with, like a niece or a nephew or something like that, where you're like, oh, here's this world I've made up, and these are the rules by which you have to participate in my game. And you're like, okay, sure, I guess we're going to do that. Except this guy has the power of the entire intelligence apparatus of the U.S.
Right. Except this guy's actively trying to institute a coup right now
Well, it's
in
like-
Venezuela.
It's like all those like that old Chomsky book, like What We Say Goes, or those sorts of titles. Like, yeah, like we can just basically bullshit this into reality.
That's it.
Who knows that better than Elliot Abrams, really?
Elliot Abrams covered up some of the worst, the types of things that the Reagan administration with appointment of Elliot Abrams backed in places like El Salvador and Guatemala would make ISIS look twice.